Hello, welcome to Nick Up. This is Kyle speaking. This is my podcast. I've been meaning to do this for quite a long time now. Um, for whatever reason, it hasn't taken off. But now I'm hoping I can start to nail some of these episodes down and start trying to help people. That's what the ultimate goal is. Um, so this podcast is called Nick Up. That's the five key elements that ADHD brain runs on. All ADHD brains worldwide. Novelty, interest, challenge, urgency, and passion. Um, so this is the whole podcast is about how ADHD actually works and not how people expect it to work. Um, if something doesn't hit at least one of those five things, um, in Nick Up, then the ADHD brain struggles to engage. That's one way of looking at this. So in each episode, I'm obviously going to break things down into real terms, with like practical examples. That's what I intend to do. Because we can all go and get advice from doctors. We can get advice from specialists, and don't get me wrong, I've been very lucky. I've ended up with one of the best. Um, she's changed my life forever. Dr. Alison Perry, Oxford University Hospital. Um, Unbelievable, literally unbelievable. Yeah, I have nothing but the utmost respect, and she is the only human being on earth that I trust. Um, Incredible person. So that is a big shout out to her first, because more than anything, she deserves it for her work. She is incredible. Um, so what I'm going to try and get into, I'm going to I'm going to do a little bit about myself. Um, Try and explain my situation, um, or what my situation has previously been. Hopefully, um, this gets into the right hands and helps some people, or they may even have questions, and I might have the answers. I don't know. What I want to say is that everything that I say in the podcast is my own opinion. Um, it's from lived experience. It's not from textbooks. It's not from being on Google or AI and you know guessing. This is about things I've really lived. So here we are. Um, Eventually trying to to get it to happen. Um, I've got a laptop in front of me. Um, that's not for any advice. This is all going to be very raw. That's how I want it to be. I like things that way. Um, I think it shows your character, as well as gets your point across. And I've got a lot of time for that. Um, so where we're at with this, um, the first thing I'd say, um, is well, with Nick Up, I suppose the abbreviation. Um, it's good to know what they stand for. So we have N is novel. So different storylines. Um, the I is interest. So an ADHD brain will always work best when there's something that it's interested in, and sometimes won't work at all if there is no interest. The C is challenge, the U is urgency, and P is passion. Now, when we go through these five key elements of how all ADHD brains work, um, because that is how all ADHD brains work. Um, as you go through these, I'm going to try and break it down, um, so that it's, I suppose it's human like, if you get what I mean, without all of the clinical terms. And I'm going to try and like put it into a real life situation. So um first off, we'll go through them. So things that are novel, they're different all the time. It's a different storyline. It's something that's new. Interest is just interest. We all know what that is. I think things that you're interested in the most, etc. Challenges, um, anything that is put in front of you that seems could be a bit difficult or might be a little bit out of your comfort zone. There's normally a challenge. Urgency is literal urgency. It's just what it is. Got to do things fast, and then the passion comes into it near the end, I suppose. But I believe that for me personally, I think passion covers all of the other four elements. So my way of describing Nick Up to people when I do, because I find it's the easiest way for some people to understand ADHD. Um, and when I start to break it down, people start going, "Oh shit, do you know what? Yeah, like that, yeah, yeah, it really makes sense." And my way of breaking it down is with gambling. So I've dealt with addiction with gambling for a number of years. Blows hot and cold, can sometimes be extremely bad, can sometimes be non-existent. Um, but it's something that I've had troubles with over the years, for sure. Um, so the way that I explain Nick Up with gambling, this is to try and give a bit of perspective before I go into saying a little bit about my past. Um, with uh, with Nick Up, and gambling, let's say, I'm going to try and give you the example. So, um, something that's novel. Let's take, so I always use football and horse racing because it's kind of easy to explain that way. So, not something novel is always different, right? So a football match is always different. A horse race is always different. Always. It doesn't matter whether they're the same. It's the same race 2 days in a row. It's the same game 2 days in a row with the same team, the same players. Something will be different. Like the weather, the referee, whatever it may be, something will be different. And the same with horses. It could be the going, it could be the distance, whatever it may be. It'll always be different. So that's your novel part. So this for you, this doesn't have to be any sort of addiction. It can be, because it may help you address it or understand it at least. But you can try and channel this into all walks of life. Um, you know, any sort of situation. Dating is a different female, for example. Jobs is different things to do. You can sort of channel it and understand it. The second thing is interest. It seems quite obvious, really, but interest is huge within ADHD. Um, you've got to stay interested, or you have to try and find something that you can find interest in. I've been struggling with this myself recently, and my last appointment with my neurologist, this was something I got a bit of a kick up the ass for, because I was struggling to sort of find anything that I had much interest in other than my children. I didn't really, sort of feel a bit flat, I suppose. And I think this may be why I'm attempting again to do something with this now, because this is my ultimate goal, um, is to try and help other people, and I really am interested in that. So yeah, keeping interest is high on the agenda. Um, C is challenge. Um, the best way to explain this, I suppose. So sorry, going off track. I'm trying to keep this all compact into one take. So interest in the example would be literally because I played football as a kid. I played at a professional club. Um, so I've always been interested in football. And unfortunately, I was exposed to gambling from a very young age, from like 13, 12 or 13. I was exposed to gambling. So it's always been an interest of mine. Um, and I've always, it's just something I've now always done 20 years later, you know. Um, so we've got the novel and we've got the interest. Okay, so it's a different game that I'm interested in. That's where we're at right now. So next comes the challenge, right? So challenge is literally as it says. But if you ask an ADHD or a neurodivergent person, but on in this instance, we're going to say ADHD. I think it may predominantly apply to ADHDers. But if you say to an ADHDer, I bet you can't do that. That's a challenge. And I'd probably say 99% of ADHDers are going to go, okay, watch. And they're going to at least try and show you that they can do it. Even if it's hard, even if they maybe know they can't, um, they're going to give it a go and try and show you that they can. And that's not to try and be the big I am. That's just how an ADHD brain works. Um, it's a challenge. Okay, let me show you. Like I have the ability to do that. Um, and putting that into the example, the challenge is to win. That the same way that it would be if you were dead. It would be to get it right, get it correct. The challenge is to beat the bookies and win the bet, get it right. So we're in this example where um, it's novel. There's a different game that I'm interested in, and I've now got a challenge. I've got to try and get this prediction of this different game right. Now we move on to urgency. Okay. Now urgency is in terms of gambling nowadays. It's not necessarily irrelevant, but what I try to do is I say, look, let's pretend that we're in a bookmakers, we're in a shop. Okay, we can't do in play betting. They don't have the terminals where you can do that with just old school slips. We've got to get our bets on by 3 p.m. Right? So there's urgency. Whatever you're doing in your day, right? That you've got something to do at a set time. Now, the way that an ADHD brain works is by pressure, meaning urgency. So you want to get that bet on because it's a challenge that you want to win and you want to get right and you want the money, etc. Okay, so you trigger it by the pressure. That then means urgency. Urgency means dopamine, and dopamine means the ability to focus. So without urgency, the ADHD brain doesn't really get the signal to engage. It doesn't really. It's not really. It's not really bothered because everything's just sort of. We're just what are we doing here? We're just sort of relaxing. There's not much going on. There's nothing to worry about or nothing to get done. So when you bring urgency into it, into the example, it's quite easy. Say, well, what's so urgent about it? Well, a kickoff time is 3 p.m. A horse race it goes off at 1:20. We need to get this bet on by that time. So that's where the urgency comes into this example. So just to keep it on track, we have this different horse race this time that I'm interested in. The challenge is still to beat the bookies, and I've got to get this bet on by 1:20 p.m. I got to get it done. And now we bring in passion. And for me, passion's the biggest thing because I'm a very passionate person, extremely passionate, sometimes too passionate. It's been a downfall of mine, I suppose, because I am very passionate about what I care about. And the things I don't care about, I really do not care about and I don't entertain. But when there's things I do care about, um, i.e., my children, I would happily die for them, happily, without even batting an eyelid, if that's what was best for them. Um, so passion rules everything in my eyes. In this situation and in this example, I think it's passion and interest are very similar. I think in a lot of ways, but the way that I explain it is, you can be interested in something, but you're not always passionate about it. Like, I'm not necessarily interested in my children. I'm passionate about my children. As much as I am interested, I'm more passionate about them. That's my that's my soul. That's my everything. That's all I have. So if I was to just say, yeah, I'm interested in my children, it wouldn't be enough for me. So passion and having that, whatever passion gives you, that sort of burning desire, um, you then channel that into this example for what we're doing now, this little task or whatever it may be, um, and then sort of wrap all of the other four elements around. You grab passion and wrap it around those four elements, and all of a sudden it's this stronger burning desire. And when you can get to that stage, it's then, you know, it's now a force. It's a force to be reckoned with. So, um, that's Nick Up. That's what this podcast is called. That's what we. There's a lot of focus around it because it's something to come back to all of the time. What I would say to someone listening, to people listening, if you want to try and take some advice on board, is I'd have it written down. I used to have it everywhere. I used to just have it on my phone, on boards in the house. I'd write it every time I had a bit of pen and paper. I'd always write down Nick Up, and I'd always come back to it. And now it's just channeled into my brain, so I know when something's gonna go wrong, or there has the potential to go wrong. Um, at least, I'm not pessimistic in that way that I expect everything to go wrong. I know when I need a bit of a kick up the ass or something to make me interested again, because that's the key part of this, is staying interested. Um, so now that part's out of the way, um, I'll go into a little bit about me and my past. Um, I don't know how relevant it's going to be to the listeners, I suppose, but I think it's probably always good to know who you're talking to, or who you're listening to, at least. Um, and in this situation, like I said from the start, everything that's mentioned is purely lived through experience. So it can be debated, I suppose, to a degree, as to its accuracy, because other people may have experienced things slightly differently. But I think as a whole, the things that I'm going to touch on are always going to be quite close to facts. I like to keep things as factual as possible. I try and live my life logic over emotion, which I'm currently doing quite well with. Um, so yeah, uh, I was born in Swindon. Um, I am one of six children. Unfortunately, I don't have a relationship with my mother or any of my sisters. Just my one brother that I talk to. Don't speak to any of my other family. So I live quite a lonely lifestyle. Um, yeah, I played football from young, very young, 3 or 4 years, or maybe even younger, with my older brother, and that was it. That was all that mattered. Nothing else mattered. It was just tunnel vision. Gonna be a footballer. Um, yeah, there's no two ways about this. That's just how things are. I'm gonna do everything I can, and I will be a footballer. I was so committed and so dedicated that um, I think in necessarily the long run, but I think I was so dedicated that it ended up backfiring, because I started to, I wouldn't go to class in school because I just wanted to carry on playing football at break time. I'd stay out and just play on my own, and then I wouldn't get in till late, because I was outside the house playing football on my own on the green, out on the grass playing football until whatever time, meaning that I'd get up late and be groggy for school and then get to school and not be in the mood for teachers. And obviously, I had this undiagnosed ADHD that was never even explored by my mother. So I feel like I hold a little resentment towards my mother for that, because when I got to say 17, 18, I started to get some real horrific and really, really horrific symptoms of what presented as real, but I think the doctor said chronic anxiety. Um, and sort of gave me this diagnosis on, he did this whole thing with a dictaphone and stuff. And I'm thinking, oh, this is a bit weird, And I thought the next thing they're going to say, right, we're taking you away, you're going to a mental home. I was puzzled. I didn't really know what was going on. Obviously I learned over time that it was just quite a normal process that doctors do. But at the time, I was really, really puzzled. But I'd explained to him what had been happening. I'd been having dreams, waking up dead, waking up, obviously assuming I was dead, um, having panic attacks in my sleep, having panic attacks all day long in like a state of what felt like hyperventilating constantly. It was brutal. It was brutal for, I don't know, the best part of 10 years. Literally that long. Sad, real sad. Um, Never really been happy. In terms of with my life, where I'm at, where never really had direction of exactly where I'm trying to get to. Um, and I feel that I mentioned the resentment towards my mum. I feel that it was sort of, I always almost feel like I was born destined to lose, because the situation I was born into was very strange and messed up. It's probably not something I'll touch on. Yeah, I probably won't touch on it, to be honest, but it's an extremely strange and weird situation, um, that involves my family. And it was the definition of dysfunctional, but I always felt pushed aside and never loved. I've never felt the feeling of love. I don't understand the feeling of love. I don't know what it is to be loved. Because everything that I've ever thought loved me, or that I loved, has always deserted me. It's never been there forever. Um, or the love fades and um, is not as strong as it once. It's not as strong as it once was. Um, this all leads to something called RSD in ADHD, which is rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Um, it will have to have its own episode, because it's a lot to go into, and there's so many examples and experiences where you can end up in bad places very quickly with RSD. Um, so yeah, I always felt like I was sort of on the back foot, because I went through all of this experience, felt no love, went through school, just struggled with concentrating. I was so bad at school, like I was bad. I was bad. I was taking guns to school. I was in in back then I wasn't even really doing, I wasn't up to much, I suppose, but I was bad. The teachers, they a lot of them. I seen some teachers a year or two ago, and they were like gobsmacked that it was the same person. Um, And when I explained I'd been diagnosed with ADHD, they were kind of like, well, yeah, we fucking like that was kind of obvious, you know. And that's the sad part for me, is that my mum didn't ever think this could be something, like there could be something going on here, you know. And I know that times were different back then, but 2003, four, I suppose, these sorts of times. I mean, I know it's a while ago now, but there was still medication for things back then, and I just felt ignored, I think. And when I finally got medicated, um, I then I did feel some strong resentment towards my mother, because I thought, how how have I had to live my life like I have, when all it took was a tablet, and all of a sudden I can breathe again, and I'm not having a panic attack every hour, and I can go and get a job and keep the job, and you know I'm not a drug dealer anymore. It's crazy. It's crazy because that's where my life went. I ended up, um, like I said, smoking weed and drinking, partying, just the normal shit. Um, as we kind of, not we all do, because we don't all do, but from where I'm from, it's kind of like the norm. Um, so yeah, that's how it went. Drinking, partying, smoking weed, whatever else, whatever goes, sort of thing. Except from hard drugs, of course. Um, did a little bit of coke on weekends here and there for probably around about a 6 month period, and it just made me a lot worse and made all my symptoms worse, obviously. But at the time, it's kind of like trying to escape this feeling of pure anxiety. Um, I guess you kind of reach for whatever you can. It's a shitty excuse, but I think that that's kind of what we're all doing in some sort of weird way. Um, and yeah, eventually, um, began dealing drugs. Got into got into drug dealing. Was making all right money, sensible money. But then obviously all of the money, if not 90% of the money, was going on gambling, because I had this this void to fill, or this thing I was introduced to from so young, that was now the norm to do. So yeah, drug dealing led to this and that, and then led to prison. When I was 21, I think I was 21, maybe 20. 20, I reckon I was around about 20 and 10 months. For some reason, that's sat in my head, or 21 and 10 months, but one of the two. And yeah, I went to prison. Can't remember exactly what I got. I had a suspended sentence as well that got activated. So that did some time in prison. Nothing long, nothing crazy. At the time, didn't really have much to write home about. It was also one of those things, quite weirdly, really, that was kind of like expected. Um, I kind of went into it knowing that there's a very good chance I'm going to get caught and go to prison. It wasn't ever the goal, obviously, but I mean, it's a very real reality that could happen. So trying to trying to hide away from it would have been stupid. So yeah, when it did happen, I wasn't surprised. I was kind of just, prison's a strange place when on the first time you go, because it's literally just strange, because it's one of those things, you like, the only way to explain it is you don't know what to expect. You can hear all of these stories, you can watch films and read books and whatever else, but until you get there, you don't know what to expect. And when you when you do see what's going on, you also don't know how your body's going to react to that. Now, the first time around, I was okay. I wasn't as bad as I was, or as bad as it got, I suppose. I was on low doses of medication, SSRIs and beta blockers, etc. Venlafaxine and propanolol. Maybe maybe very low doses of diazepam at that time. Um, yeah, very low, I'd say. And then, uh, and then, yeah, like prison was just kind of prison. I was still young, and I could still play football well. Um, so I sort of just slotted in and just went about my business, did what I had to do, went home, and sort of rest was history. That's what I thought. But it wasn't. When I was in prison, I gained a lot of weight. But I didn't even realize. I didn't actually realize until um, I got back, I think. Um, so yeah, it's a bit of a funny story, really. I was speaking to my friend, and then one day he said something about getting a bit fat, and I said, "Talk, I ain't getting fat. You know about?" And I'd been living quite good, and he's like, "Yeah, you are. Look at your derby." So he's look at your derby, man. I said, "All right." I lifted up my t-shirt, so I got a six pack under here, and I had stretch marks everywhere. And I thought, "Oh, fuck, I'm getting fat." Oh, shit, I'm getting fat. Well, I'd just been sat there, just not doing anything, eating medication. And that was the medication I was taking, actually, amitriptyline. And they sort of like, it almost felt like, I think they're there for nerve damage. And I think they almost felt like they paralyzed you a little bit, made you like real groggy in the morning. Not a good medication at all. And, um, and yeah, so time went on. I come home from prison, had this whole big plan of working, and I was going to do this correctly and this, that correctly. And I had a daughter, and then got a job, got a job in a bookies. The logic is, there is no logic. It was crazy. Yeah, just sat there all day, every day betting. Um, but I suppose in one way or another, there was some sort of logic there, because if I wasn't in the bookies working, I'd have been in there betting. So I was kind of doing both, you know. It's how it would have went. And then I stepped away from the drugs for a bit and didn't do nothing for not very long, until I got cold feet and was like, I need money. Like, I'm not used to this whole getting paid 12 times a year thing, and you know whatever I can't remember what the wage was back then, but I wasn't used to that sort of money. I was used to seeing a lot bigger sums of money than that. So I've met some people in prison, and there's um everything was available, in touching distance, 20 minutes, half an hour. So I went back to everything, but this time things were a bit different. There was a lot more on the line now. I had a daughter. Um, I felt like I had money to make, whereas before it was kind of like a hobby. This time around, I felt like, right, I've been to prison. I don't want to get caught again. Prison's not good. There's nothing good about prison at all. So it's not somewhere you want to return to unless you're weird, or you don't have anything going for you. So now there was a lot more on the line. Um, you feel like you're under different pressures. Um, the same time, I still gambled. So I'm now starting to see huge sums of money, but I'm now betting huge sums of money. So the more I made, the more I'd bet. And the more I'd bet, the more I would have to make. The cycle was just painful, painful until uh, I was doing okay. I was doing okay in terms of having my head down and not being, you know, in the police's faces, like, catch me if you can. I was doing well. I was under the radar. I've ended up making a few silly mistakes with people I shouldn't have, and yeah, I ended up going back to prison. This time I got 4 years, and yeah, from there, um, everything was bad. Everything was bad. So from, I'd say, 2016, in that whole period of when I started stepping things up, um, all of my medication got upped dramatically. I was on 10 times the amount of venlafaxine and SSRI, or in simple terms, an antidepressant. I was on 10 times the amount I began on. I was on propanolol. I think it's 120 milligrams of propanolol. I was taking mirtazapine in the daytime, 45 milligrams or 15 mil times three, just throughout the day. And then the biggest thing is I was taking Valium, diazepam. I was taking around about between 50 and 100 mil a day, which, if you know anything about medication, diazepam is strong, and 50 to 100 mil was can be lethal, especially mixed with mirtazapine. They're not to be mixed together. So um, I was, I don't really know who I was. I was a lost soul. I was in a bad way, in a bad place for a very long time, and I just was just purely surviving and nothing else. Um, then I obviously then like I'm going to prison, so now it's like, wow, right, okay, need to like try and prepare for this, but it wasn't a good situation. There was nothing good about it. And I was the person I was in prison is not who I am. I was just so anxious that I couldn't function as a human being. That's that sounds quite ridiculous, but I literally couldn't function. I could not function as a human in terms of doing everything that I need to do in my day. So I couldn't shower, brush my teeth, and make sure I get my food on time. You know, like it would be, I'd be able to brush my teeth, then I'd have to go and get my medication, and then it would be like a miss period where you can't get out of your cell and I can't shower, and then I'd be late for my food, and then, as a human, I was just all over the place. Whereas a lot of people in prison become institutionalized quite quickly and they adjust quite quickly. Um, I struggled with that, I think, and I was so unsettled that all I wanted to do was get more medication, get as much medication in me as possible so that the days would just go quicker. That's what I thought. So I would do anything to get Valium, to get uh, Zopiclones, wherever I could. Now, this whole time, I'm struggling bad. I'm struggling real bad in terms of how I explain things, feeling like I was constantly hyperventilating, feeling like um, pure paranoia. Um, Anxiety was ridiculous. Literally, when I try to explain it to people, it's, you know, if my body felt like electric shocks everywhere. There was electric shocks everywhere. If I turned my head to the right, it felt like I'd been hit with a cow prod. You know, like I'd literally been shocked with something. Um, and the same, body movements. I couldn't function. I literally could not function. I was pretty much paralyzed. Is probably the best way to explain it. Sometimes I felt like I couldn't even walk. I didn't have the strength to walk. Um, and I was in a very bad place, an extremely bad place, and I probably didn't realize how close I'd probably say I wasn't too far from death then. I would probably say that, as scary as that sounds now. But I was in a bad place. Eventually, um, I've made a plan. Obviously, all of my sentence is done now, so I can speak on this. But I've made a plan to get some Valium into the prison via hospital. I was going to go to the hospital and meet someone and get some Valium, so that I could relax a little bit, because I'd had enough. I literally didn't know what else I could do. Now, what I've done is I've faked having a fit, um, and got my cellmate to kick the door saying that he's having a fit. Now, prison officers react fast to this sort of thing because people smoke spice in prison and have fits. So they happen frequently, and they respond quickly. So I knew that this was going to work. So they've ran to the cell, and sure as they've got me straight out, got me to hospital, right? So now I'm in a position where I'm thinking, okay, I can finally do what I need to do. I just need to feel a little bit better at least. I don't think I had too long left. Um, at this time, I didn't know how long I had left, but I think it was maybe a year out before I was coming home. And I get to the hospital, and I'm in A&E, and they're saying, right, look, you're not being seen in A&E. They want to see you in neurology. I'm saying, no, fuck that. I'm in A&E because this is where my person's coming. So no, I'm staying here. And they said, well, you're not. The prison officers, you're handcuffed to the prison officers, and they said, well, you're not. You're going up to neurology. And I said, no, fuck that. I ain't going to neurology. For what? I don't need to go to neurology. I need to get a scan. They said, yeah, that's where you're having a scan, in neurology. So you need to go there now. I said, nah, fuck it, forget it. Because at this point, I know that everything I've just planned is fucked. It's gone. I'm fuming. I know I'm going to be going back to the prison now, feeling like absolute shit for however long, and that's it. So eventually, they say, well, it's up to you. We either take you back to the jail or you go up to neurology. So you might as well just go up there. You might as well go and see what they have to say. You might as well. But obviously, in my head, I'm thinking, well, there's fuck all wrong with me. I've faked it. I can't tell them that, but I've faked it. I've faked the fit. So what am I going to neurology for? That's it's fuck all wrong with my brain. I'm sound. So go up to neurology. Can't remember who I seen exactly. And then I think it may have been maybe a month or so later, and they don't tell you obviously about appointments in prison. They come to you on the morning or the beginning of the afternoon if it's an afternoon appointment, and they'll say, look, get ready, you've got an appointment. So that happened in the morning. Say, oh, you've got an appointment at the hospital, we'll be taking you in however long, get ready. Okay, cool. So get ready, go out, you go into neurology. So now I'm thinking, I've even debated whether I'm going to go or not, and I'm for fuck's sake, I don't know what am I doing there. He said, oh, they want to do some scans on you and like have a meeting with you and stuff. So anyway, I've gone to neurology, and that is where I met Dr. Perry, my neurologist, and it changed my life. My life has never been the same since. Never ever been the same since, and it probably will never go back to what it was. I can't imagine how it can, without, unless I'm not medicated. And wherever I am in the world now, luckily, that's pretty much impossible. So, yeah, what that says is, I suppose, is sort of fate and all of these other things, but I do believe that was my determination and my passion to get better that made that align and made me come across my guardian angel, because that's what it feels like. And I didn't get officially diagnosed in prison, but my neurologist made me certain that I had ADHD. After a lot of testing, I had EEGs done, and they put little scanners on your head and read your brain, see how it functions and when you're sleeping, etc. I had a lot of tests, a lot of meetings, and finally got an official diagnosis when I was home, and then medicated, and then all of a sudden felt like a human again, and it's crazy. It's real crazy. So yeah, she really changed my life, and I owe it all to her. So Dr. Parry, I don't know if you will listen to this, but if you do, thank you. You know how high I regard you as a person and as my savior. So thank you. Um, I'm gonna wrap this episode up now. It's a little bit of an intro, and yeah, I'll get the next episode up ASAP, and yeah, we'll go from there. But I hope I can help you guys. Thank you for listening. We'll talk soon.